Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to EPCOT. I know we were just here the other day to check out the newly opened Communicore Hall and Plaza and Mickey and Friends and festival favorites, but today we're back because I wanted to chat with you about the EPCOT Reimagining kind of as a whole. Since Communicore Hall and Plaza and this whole area has opened up, a lot of people have been talking about this and I feel like they're leaving out some really important details. So I want to share my thoughts on that. Also, I feel like we need to talk about this project, especially because it's done now. We need to talk about this like as one big piece, which a lot of people aren't doing. So I want to chat with you about that today. We're going to wander around, enjoy the beautiful weather, have some fun, and I don't know, see what we can stumble into. Who knows? So anyway, let's go. So I feel like the best place to start our discussion today is at the beginning. We got to talk about the EPCOT Reimagining as it was maybe not promised to us, but as it was delivered to us as guests. What Disney told us we were getting from the Reimagining. So long ago, long enough that most of us have completely forgotten about it, Disney announced that they were going to be completely reimagining EPCOT. This was going to mean updating some attractions like Spaceship Earth. We'll get more into that here in a bit. It was going to mean expansions in World Showcase. It was also going to mean a new nighttime spectacular called Harmonious. It was going to be amazing barges that turned into daytime fountains, a whole new thing with technology that we haven't seen before. And the list of things that Disney promised, or at least shared with us, was a long one. And you could learn all about it over at the Odyssey. They had like this preview center where they had this amazing Circle Vision show going with projections showing you what EPCOT was going to be once they were done. And it was really exciting. There were also signs around the park talking about like the new nighttime spectacular Harmonious. There were signs talking about how you could expect to see that in the future. And then of course there was the unmistakable step toward making all of this happen when walls went up around the park. And these walls were at first decorated and fun. They eventually just kind of turned into black plywood that divided the park up. We've seen this so many times in our construction wall updates, but of course now most of those construction walls are down, at least the ones that were related to the reimagining. More construction walls are up, like over by Test Track, because they are going to be redoing that attraction now, but that's a whole different discussion, because what we're focused on today, sorry, didn't mean to bop you around there for a second. What we're focused on today was the reimagining. Now, the long and short of what happened with the EPCOT reimagining is that construction started, and for what felt like forever, it continued until just recently, until like just about a week ago when Disney said, it's finally done. And all the walls came down, the announcement was made, and we were left with whatever this is that EPCOT is now. And this is where everything gets, at least in my opinion, a little bit weird. Because if you've been on social media, you've probably heard so many people saying, like, we waited all these years for this, and they just point to Communicore Hall and Plaza and the Mickey and Friends meet and greet, and they're like, this is nothing. Why did we wait all this time for this? But that's not what we waited for. We waited for quite a bit, even though it wasn't everything that Disney said that they were going to give us with this reimagining. So I want to focus some attention on that today, just so that we all understand what was going on with this reimagining, and we all understand what was part of the reimagining. Because look, I just want to be clear about something. I'm not standing up for Disney here, but we also, like, credit where credit's due, you know? But also criticism where criticism is due. And they deserve quite a bit of it when it comes to the delivery of these new things that they opened. So we're going to talk a little bit about that as well today. So first, I want to offer a bit of a criticism to Disney when it comes to the way that the reimagining was rolled out. Now, also, devil's advocate here, I know that circumstances were what they were, and so things got shifted around. It might not have necessarily been rolled out like they originally had planned. Still, I think that this contributed to the problem that we're running into now, specifically related to how much criticism Disney is getting for having us wait so long for basically an empty room. So the way that Disney rolled out all of the elements of this reimagining, at least based on my experience and perception of this, was very drawn out, and it was very separated, with each individual piece that was being introduced just feeling like it was something that Disney did to upkeep the park, which is something that they should have done anyway, rather than being part of a bigger project. And I think that this, like I said, contributes to the problem that is everything feeling so minor and some things that were part of the reimagining completely being forgotten. For example, some of you may have completely forgotten that part of the reimagining was at the entrance of the park. There used to be these big Leave a Legacy stones, and it filled up the entire area that Spaceship Earth overlooked. That entire entrance of the park, that was removed, it was opened up, planters were added. It's a much nicer space now than it was, but people seem to have forgotten that it was the Leave a Legacy stones to begin with. That was part of the reimagining. In fact, the reimagining also brought us the return of the fountain that's at the entrance of EPCOT now. It was here and then it went away and now it's back. So that's thanks to the reimagining. Also, while we're on the topic of the front of the park, Creation Shop, Connections Cafe, Connections Eatery, that's all part of the reimagining as well. But it's been open for a little while, so again, I feel like kind of gets forgotten about. But not as much as some other things that I'm sure you don't realize were part of that reimagining, and it's probably because it opened so long ago. We're headed there now. Yep. The Ratatouille attraction, as well as the entire expansion of the France Pavilion, is all part of the reimagining that I feel like people completely forgot about. So of course we have this huge open area back here with the new restaurant and the quick service window. By the way, this line, this is for Remy's Ratatouille Adventure. It's a 75-minute wait right now, which isn't too bad, but it certainly doesn't look good, does it? We also got a new show here, actually two. I want to say that Impressions de France was updated, and we got the Beauty and the Beast sing-along in here as well as part of the reimagining. We also got a new show over in Canada and Awesome Planet over in the land. Two more additions that were part of the reimagining that most people overlook or have forgotten about. So the list is getting pretty long. Now, like I said, it's a long list, but I'm not gonna leave you hanging. Let's go over some of the other things that are part of the EPCOT reimagining as well, including Space 220, Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind, and Harmonious, the show that kind of came and went, but still was like the centerpiece of World Showcase during the reimagining. That was also part of this whole project. Then there was World Celebration, which I think is really easy to overlook. It's right there at the beginning of the park, but that whole area with all the gardens and the separate seating where you can just chill, enjoy some shade, plug in your devices, that was part of the reimagining too, right alongside Communicore Hall and Plaza, which we just checked out the other day because it was the last piece of the reimagining to open. Now, like I said before, delivery is everything. And the way that Disney rolled this out, in my opinion, didn't really feel like they did a good job setting themselves up for success and setting guests up to be wowed. I mentioned this when responding to a comment. One of you said that it's hard to even pretend to be excited about EPCOT's reimagining being done. And I totally understand how you could be coming from that point of view, or how you could have that point of view. Honestly, it's exciting just to have the walls down. But I think you really have to look at the big picture. You have to zoom out a bit. But it's admittedly not easy to do that when Disney hasn't set you up to be able to do that. They need to give you the tools to be able to see the big picture. And unfortunately, they haven't. At least not with this reimagining, which is too bad because they did do stuff, although they didn't do everything they said they were going to do. Speaking of that, let's talk about what Disney didn't deliver on. So first of all, we were supposed to get Wondrous China, a new film over at the China Pavilion. That didn't happen. We've talked about the Play Pavilion before, kind of loosely now and again, but I often reference the Wonders of Life Pavilion. That's the one that's currently like abandoned between Guardians of the Galaxy and Mission Space. That was supposed to be a pavilion which, according to this, is an innovative and new pavilion that would introduce an immersive, interactive city featuring characters like Edna Mode, Wreck-It Ralph, Judy Hopps. So That never happened. World Celebration was supposed to have a festival center, which was like this elevated area. It was beautiful. I think it would have been fantastic. We never got that. There was also supposed to be an expansion over at the UK pavilion, similar to what we saw over in France, just with a different type of attraction. That one was supposed to be themed to Mary Poppins, and I think that that would have been fantastic. I really hope that one day they do follow through with that. Then, the other thing that I really am disappointed about was the Spaceship Earth reimagining or overhaul. Spaceship Earth, this attraction is in rough shape. It's a fraction of what it used to be, and it really needs some help, especially since it is the feature attraction of this park. It's so disappointing that this kind of fell completely off the stove. It didn't even make it to the back burner. They did actually close the attraction, but then with everything that happened in 2020, they opened it back up. If I'm being completely honest with you, I really hope that they pick that back up, because the concept art looked absolutely amazing, and I think that that attraction deserves some love. Quite frankly, I think that this whole park deserves some love, and there are definitely things here that need work done, but it's a rant for another day. Anyway, all of this to say, I do think that there's a good amount of stuff that Disney didn't deliver on. It's as simple as that, and I totally understand how people are hanging on to that stuff, especially because some of what they didn't deliver on was big and it was exciting, and we were really looking forward to it, like the pavilion opening back up, the Wonders of Life pavilion opening back up into the Play pavilion. Even though it wasn't something that was particularly exciting to everyone, I think having another space that could be utilized, that could alleviate some of the strain of the crowds that are throughout this park would have been nice. More attractions like what we would get over in the UK for Mary Poppins would have been nice. We didn't get any of that, and that's disappointing. But I do think that it's quite a stretch to say that nothing happened here for the reimagining, or that it was completely underwhelming. I think that it could be underwhelming for some. I totally understand that, different strokes for different folks. But to say that nothing happened here, that's a stretch. I also think that it's not particularly fair to blow past some of the changes that EPCOT made as part of the reimagining that were things that people complained quite a bit about, even though what they delivered wasn't particularly impressive. For example, the entrance of the park. For years, people have been complaining about the Leave a Legacy. Some people call them gravestones. They were these big, cold stone structures, and they didn't feel welcoming. They didn't feel bright. They felt very... People made fun of them. People didn't like them. They crowded up the space. It didn't feel open. It wasn't open. So Disney changed that. They made it warmer. They made it brighter. They made it more open. And I think that there are people out there who are like, well, you didn't do much. This didn't wow us. I hear you, but you also didn't like what was there. And sometimes the change isn't going to be something that wows you. It's going to be something that solves a problem. And I think that we got a lot of that here at EPCOT for the reimagining. And it's easy to gloss over that stuff because it's not super big and impressive. For example, all of the seating in World Celebration. I know I've said it before, but EPCOT was in desperate need of seating and shade. The little flex space that's outside of the Imagination Pavilion. I know people are looking at it going, oh, cornhole, that's what people wanted. No, they wanted a place to be so that they can enjoy their festival foods, their drinks, and have a place for their kids to sit instead of being in the middle of a walkway or eating on a trash can. That solves that problem. So it might not necessarily wow you now. It might just be kind of meh. But I think that it's one of those things that since it solves the problem that needed to be solved, people will be not impressed with later, but later when they're like, oh wow, this is a much more pleasant experience, it will be because of those things. So again, it's not like being wowed right away. It's not going to blow you away right away. But if you zoom out and think about the problems that needed to be solved, you can go, oh, this is the solution I was looking for. Now, whether or not it's just me, I don't know, maybe you're noticing this stuff too, but it seems like the harshest criticisms are about things like that. And I don't really think that they deserve those criticisms. I just don't. And you know what? If I can pull back the curtain for a second, I know this is going to be a little bit inside baseball, but I think that a lot of people who heavily criticize some of this stuff, I don't think that they think that Disney deserves the criticism. I think that it's just an attractive concept to harshly criticize Disney because they know that it's going to get a rise out of people. As a content creator, that can be an attractive concept. Personally, I don't like doing that because I focus so much on the travel side. I want you to have a good trip. I want you to have the information that you want and to talk about things that we enjoy talking about, even if there are criticisms that I have to offer, which I do all the time. But I also firmly believe that we should be criticizing things that are worth criticizing, like the fact that certain elements don't work only a couple days after they open to the public. Or for example, things that are going to be stressful for guests, like not having the updates on the app or on park maps, which since has changed, but on opening day when that first opened up and almost all the way into a week after the new areas of the park opened up, there wasn't a new map. That's the stuff where I think criticism is due, not because it's just a grassy area with some lawn games. You know what I mean? Anyway, I've said it before, and being reasonable is rarely sexy. People don't want to listen to people being reasonable. They want to listen to people being hyped up, being critical. And I don't see any need for it unless there's actually a need for it. And for most of these things, I don't see the need. It's not to say that I was wowed or blown away. It just doesn't seem worth getting all ragey about, Anyway, let's finish our trip around World Showcase. Now, in terms of the EPCOT Reimagining as a whole, when it comes to my opinions, I feel like it's good. I mean, I'm not completely blown away, but it feels like it was updated in a way that it definitely needed to be updated, at least in part. The challenge is that there are so many parts of EPCOT that did not get updated, and they really, really needed it. By the way, I'm just gonna divert here for a second. Over here in that flex space, there are kids playing lawn games. So that's a win in my book. Literally, there's a kid hula hooping right now. When was the last time you saw a kid hula hoop? Right there in EPCOT. That's awesome. And for those of you who are like, oh, well, you could do that at home, not every kid gets a chance to do that all the time at home. Same thing with playgrounds. Anyway, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I was completely wowed by the EPCOT Reimagining and that it, completely reinvented the park in a way that breathed new life into it. Because quite frankly, while that's true for pieces of it, it's not true for the whole thing. Certainly not for like the Imagination Pavilion, which is like hanging on by the skin of its teeth. And then there is like the Wonder of Life Pavilion, which again, still closed. But it's a step in the right direction, at least in my opinion, when it comes to improving this park. Now, again, with the rollout, did it happen in a way that I think served anyone well? No, not really. But it also happened at a time where things were just messed up. And I know that people like to pretend that that wasn't a major problem and that Disney was like above it. They weren't. They ran into the same problems that every other person doing any type of construction ran into. And of course, then there was the whole Reedy Creek situation, which that definitely halted stuff. And all those problems that they ran into, they were going to contribute to how things were rolled out and how long things took. So even though there's a lot of people who are criticizing the amount of time it took to complete what was completed, I don't really think that that's fair either. Unless, of course, you're willing to offer that same criticism to anyone who had a construction project that was underway during that time period. And that's just not happening, especially for people who are so heavily focused on Disney-related content. Of course, people love to take the easy target regardless. So I'm not even going to get into that sack of potatoes. But just because I give people the benefit of the doubt, I give Disney the benefit of the doubt from time to time, doesn't mean that I don't have my own criticisms about the reimagining. Yes, I think that it's good. Oh, there goes the monorail. Yes, I think that it's good. I like what they had done, but that doesn't mean that everything is flawless. And we've pointed this out even in our first impressions of some of the things that we've experienced as soon as they've opened. Again, it's a long list. So I could reach for more specifically Communicore Hall and Plaza, which just opened. Some of you might have seen our first impressions of that when we went and wandered around there. Like the fact that there's not a lot of shade, there's only like a few umbrellas, that just is a choice that was made by someone who it seems like they've never been to a theme park, let alone a theme park here in Central Florida. This is not the only example of something like this happening. Disney has done things like this a lot, not just here at EPCOT, but throughout the Walt Disney World Resort. It's really disappointing. I don't know who's making those decisions, but nonetheless. The same could be said for the queue over at Mickey and Friends being mostly outdoors. That just doesn't seem like a good choice, even though they at least have fans over there. So it's things like that. When I criticize things, it's going to be those types of decisions, the types of decisions that were made by someone who just seemed to not know any better, and that's a bigger problem with Walt Disney World that we can dig into some other day. But beyond that, the second biggest criticism that I have is that when things opened, they just seemed to be half-assed. There were so many elements that just didn't work appropriately or malfunctioned like right out of the gate, and I think that Disney can do better than that. They've shown us that they can do some amazing things, so it was really disappointing to see some basic lighting elements, for example, just not working appropriately. I don't know how they opened up without getting that stuff squared away. I know that things happen, but it seems to be such a big problem, a widespread problem, that it's really surprising that they would have launched like lighting effects if they weren't 100%. I have some theories as to why or how that happened, but we can get into that some other day. Nonetheless, I think the long and short of it is there's a lot of chatter about how one little element of this whole reimagining was unimpressive, and the reimagining as a whole was a lot of little elements that unfortunately all opened up so far apart that I think we forget about that. And if you go back, you can hear all these people talking about the elements independently, saying we waited forever for this. It wasn't just this, and I wish a few more people would talk about that. I haven't heard any of it, so forgive me if there are other people out there who have chatted about this in this way, but I just wanted to share my thoughts on that. I'd love to hear yours, so pop them in the comments down below. Tell me what you think about all of the additions that have been made to EPCOT in the past, I don't know, 5-6 years, however long it's been. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'd love to hear what you're excited about, maybe what disappointed you, so tell me in a comment down below. But for now, I'm going to take a couple more sips of water and make my way out to the Jeep. I'm so glad that you joined me today. I hope you had fun while we wandered around the park, and I hope to see you in the next one. Until then, have a great rest of your day. Bye, guys.